I may consume. Mr. Speaker, a yes vote on this resolution should be a relatively straightforward, easy decision. It simply states that Congress denounces socialism in all its forms and opposes the implementations of socialist policies in the United States of America. It's a statement that I would hope all of our elected leaders in the United States, up and down our system of government, could support. Socialism ignores the side of man and woman that is the spirit. It dulls the human capacity for self-initiative, entrepreneurship, risk-taking. For those that have concerns about the resolution, I just invite you to read it. It outlines the pain and hardship experienced by millions around the world who have suffered under socialist regimes. This is something that the sponsor of the resolution, Congresswoman Salazar of Florida, has focused on combating for her entire career. Congresswoman Salazar is the daughter of Cuban exiles and was born in Miami's Little Havana. Representative Salazar has led the charge against socialist policies. This resolution today is just one example of her commitment to her constituents and our entire nation. The contrast between the successful policies under market capitalism and the freedom associated with particularly our robust democracy here in America and socialism across the world and in history could not be starker. I cannot express this enough. This resolution is just not a messaging bill, or as some from across the aisle have called it, a waste of time. It's not that to the people and the families who have experienced the horrors and atrocities associated with socialist regimes. Today we're talking about here in the most vigorous democracy in the land, in our 250th year, we're talking about rejecting socialism that punishes freedom, punishes individual action, tears families apart. That's what we're here to talk about. We're not here to rattle down about current events. So, the gentlewoman from Florida, Congresswoman Salazar leads our Western Hemisphere subcommittee in the House Foreign Relations Committee. And what better person, Mr. Speaker, to have this responsibility? Born in Little Havana in Miami, daughter of Cuban exiles, let her tell you how cushy life was under Castro's communist socialist.
Covering stories for Univision Network, I interviewed many people who had lost their legs or their brothers or sisters in the middle of the ocean trying to get to Miami, and the sharks ate them up. Some of them were eaten up alive, others lost legs, and they made it to Florida. And I was able, as a journalist, to interview them and see the horrors of what they had to go through because they were escaping the paradise called socialism. So I'm just going to start with that, and I'm going to finish maybe with another anecdote. But the reason why we're introducing this resolution is to condemn the horrors of socialism, and I'm presenting just the facts. And I invite my colleagues on the other side to vote to condemn this nefarious ideology. This has nothing to do with political parties. This is not a Democratic issue. This is not a Republican issue. This is a moral vote against an ideology that has destroyed millions and millions of families. Many of them, I served those families in District Number 27, the heart of the city of Miami, the heart of the Cuban exile community, and now the Venezuelan community, and murdered more than 100 million lives, besides crushing hundreds of thousands of other families and individuals. Unfortunately, socialism and Marxism crushes the human soul. And it's not just my community in Miami, millions of Cubans who had to flee. And it's the rest of the hemisphere and the rest of the world. Just look at Russia, look at North Korea, look at Iran. And what a coincidence that today President Trump is receiving in the White House the mayor-elect, Mr. Mondani, from the city of New York, or from New York City. And I salute the president for receiving Mr. Mondani because he won fair and square, and that's the way democracy works. But let me just tell you something, knowing very well how Fidel works and how Hugo Chavez works and how socialism works, that I just want to put this into perspective. If it were to be the other way around, and Trump would have been the mayor-elect, and Mondani were to be the president of the United States, I assure you that there's no way that Mondani is going to receive Trump at the White House, period. And how do I know that? Because I know exactly how they operate. Democracy is just a tool to get to power, period. People who love freedom were just useful fools to be used in order to get to the business of power, which is all socialist, communist, whatever you want to call it. If it's not democracy and freedom and free market economy, it's just a bad ideology. And Maduro is not only the head of the Suns cartel, one of the most important drug trafficking cartels in the world. He was indicted in 2020 by a federal grand jury in this country for being one of the major drug traffickers in the world. Not only that, he is now on the transnational criminal organization. Not only that, he is the head of the Suns cartel. And you tell me, Chairman, if I can.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield the gentlewoman an additional minute.
The lady from Florida is recognized for 1 minute.
So, I mean, as you can see, I can speak until tomorrow about socialism. And the problem is that Venezuela is the perfect example. And the Venezuelans would make fun of the Cubans 25 years ago, saying that it was impossible for that to happen in Venezuela. They had the largest reserves of oil in the world. They were a very strong democracy. They were not an island. It was impossible. They had such a strong economy. And look right now, the average Venezuelan weighs 15 pounds less because of lack of food. And look, the Trump administration has to come and rescue them from what they have turned that country into. So we're at a crossroads in this country. Young Americans, 70% believe that socialism is good. 1 in 3 believe that government should control major industries. 1 in 4 says that we should abolish private property. It is my duty as a representative, District Number 27, the heart of the Cuban exile community, to tell this body it's time to denounce socialism in this country, because just like it happened to the Venezuelans, it could happen to the Americans.
An honor to stand here to strongly support the House Concurrent Resolution 9. As a Korean American who grew up in the aftermath of the Korean War, I have witnessed the horrors of socialism firsthand. I always say, if you want to see the difference between socialism and freedom, just look at the Korean Peninsula at night. South Korea shines with opportunity. North Korea is trapped in darkness. Time and time again throughout history, socialism has led to disaster, starvation, imprisonment, and the death of over 100 million people worldwide. My own family lived those horrors. My mother-in-law risked her life crossing the DMZ lines multiple times to rescue loved ones from the North Korean regime. To this day, tens of thousands of Korean families remain separated by a system that tears apart communities and crushes basic human dignity. Now more than ever, as socialist ideas gain traction here at home, and as our nation's largest city and financial capital has elected not just a socialist, but a communist as mayor, we must firmly demand our capitalist free market system, which empowers Americans of all backgrounds to achieve freedom, opportunity, and prosperity. I know what America represents because I remember my first glimpse of freedom as a young girl, looking up, wide-eyed, as U.S. soldiers tossed candy from their trucks in the communities that I lived. Today, as one of the first Korean American women to serve in Congress,
Ladies, time
that
has
freedom
expired.
tastes just as sweet.
Gentlelady's time has expired.
Yield the gentlewoman 30 seconds.
Stories like these can only happen in America. As a member of Congress, I will always fight for the American dream and for our free market system that keeps it within reach for everyday Americans.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of House Concurrent Resolution 58, entitled Denouncing the Horrors of Socialism. It's a shame that I have to defend the obvious, but it's necessary because, unfortunately, across the nation, progressive Democrats are increasingly cozy with a failed, discredited ideology. Socialism has time and again led to economic ruin, human deprivation, and mass suffering. But from the breadlines of Eastern Europe to the failed communist regimes of Cuba and Venezuela, socialism promises equality, but delivers it selectively. It promises security, but delivers surveillance. It promises fairness, but delivers oppression and democide. And yet, shockingly, socialism is making a comeback here in America, even in the world's greatest city. The newly elected, self-proclaimed Democratic Socialist mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani, offers socialism. A mayor who champions radical economic overreach, progressive ideology that can easily turn once prosperous countries into wastelands. Americans built New York City as a gateway for immigrants seeking a better life. We built it on freedom, self-reliance, and open markets, not on forced redistribution or centralized planning. The situation now extends to Seattle, where the mayor-elect has chosen to boycott Starbucks, a company founded in her own city. Is this what we want? A country where those who run our cities turn their backs on the very entrepreneurial spirit that made them thrive? Meanwhile, I believe that we are still that shining city on the hill. We welcome more legal immigrants than any nation on earth, more than the next 4 countries combined. They don't come because they crave government control, but because they flee it. They come for liberty. They come for...
Mr. Speaker, it's often said that capitalism is selfishness and socialism is sharing. But that's exactly backwards. The only way to succeed in a capitalist society is to figure out what somebody else needs and how to get it for them better than they can get it for themselves. It might be mowing their lawn, it might be doing brain surgery on their child, but you have to help your neighbor somehow. It's true, if you take $1 from Peter and give it to Paul, Paul's $1 richer and Peter is $1 poorer. But what you've really done is to take from both of them $1's worth of incentive to help each other. Peter no longer has a reason to help Paul because he no longer benefits. And Paul has no reason to help Peter because he no longer needs to. Socialism thus dissolves the natural bonds that hold a society together and lead each of us to help one another. Capitalism is voluntary. Peter and Paul help each other because it's in their mutual interest to do so. Socialism is compulsion. You've got to take what one has earned from helping others and give it to someone who has not. As Lincoln said, it's the same spirit that says, you work and toil and make bread, and I will eat it. Slavery and socialism both spring from that same rotten principle. Many societies have succumbed to the siren song of a benevolent, all-powerful government, only to awaken one morning to find the benevolence is gone and the all-powerful government is still there. Let that not be the epitaph of the United States of America. The history of human society can be summed up in just 4 words. Freedom works, socialism sucks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me educate our colleagues on the other side of the aisle. Socialism is communism light. Socialism is the first step to communism. Socialism is the antithesis of the American dream. Because in this country, we believe that regardless of where you come from or how you started, if you work hard, if you sacrifice, if you play by the rules, you can succeed. And that only happens in a country where you have freedom, where you have liberty, where you have self-determination, and you have the free market. In contrast, socialism is the belief that you work hard, you sacrifice, you do everything right, and the government can take what you earn from you to keep it for themselves or to redistribute it to whoever they choose. Millions of immigrants in this country fled their homeland to come to the United States to escape socialism and communism. Just ask your constituents from Russia, from Poland, from Albania, from China, from Korea, from Vietnam, from Venezuela, or Cuba, where my mother fled in 1959 to escape the very things that our new socialist mayor in New York City says he wants. A socialist who says he wants to seize the means of production. He wants to abolish private property rights. He wants government-run supermarkets. Yes, he says he's a socialist. But guess what, my friends? Those are policies straight out of the communist playbook of Karl Marx. So there is no difference between socialism and communism. And where these policies were tried, yes, they failed. Look at Venezuela, nearby country, self-proclaimed socialists. They destroyed the richest country in South America. They implemented these government-run supermarkets, and they have empty shelves. Venezuelans lost an average of 20 pounds due to starvation. They promised free, universal health care, and now they have a severe shortage of medical supplies, of medicine, of doctors. It's a horrible system. They seized the means of production, and it led to hyperinflation and complete economic collapse, which is why you had all these Venezuelans trying to come over our border illegally. You know, sadly, New York City chose to learn the hard way what socialism is. And we, those of us who did not vote for this guy, are going to pay the price. But it's up to all of us to fight back, to educate our youth, and to contain this ugly monster so it does not spread and destroy our.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My blood pressure is up right now. I cannot believe just what I heard on the House floor. The ranking member of this distinguished committee denouncing Trump, but will not denounce socialism on the House floor of the U.S. House of Representatives. History is clear. Socialism kills people. It leads to deaths of tens of millions, crushes religious liberty, and destroys free markets. Our founders built this nation on a revolutionary idea that individual liberty and not government control is a source of human achievement. They understood that when the government owns the economy, they soon seek to own the people. I hope people who are watching right now on C-SPAN or on the news get what's going on in this body today. This side is against socialism. That side is for socialism. I am disgusted with what's going on in this body. And I hope the American people see through the charade,
Gentleman's time's
the
expired.
gaslighting, and the lies that are being told.
3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If there is someone who has seen the horrors of socialism up close within the Democratic Party, is in the House, and it's the Honorable Congresswoman Maxine Waters. And I would love for you to support this resolution specifically, because, Madam Waters, for decades you traveled to Cuba dozens of times to visit Fidel Castro personally, whom you consider your friend. Congresswoman Waters was in Havana, and she saw the destruction of biblical proportions that Castro caused on that island, who at the time in 1960 had the highest per capita income in the Western Hemisphere. At that time, Madam Waters knew that thousands and thousands of Cubans were escaping on a raft, exposing their lives and their children to be eaten by the sharks. She knew that Afro-Cubans were being beaten on the streets of Havana, discriminated against by Fidel Castro, Mr. Speaker. And for that reason, I am bringing up all these facts, because Madam Waters knew that the Cuban jails were full of political prisoners, and the Cubans did not have the same privileges that we are having right now to speak freely. At that time, Madam Waters never raised her voice to denounce the horrors of socialism, Mr. Speaker. There are many people on this floor who have seen the horrors of communism. They have been to Cuba. They have been friends with Fidel Castro. They have seen the jails full of Cuban prisoners. They have seen people preparing rafts to die in the middle of the ocean, eaten by sharks. There are many people in the Democratic Party who have witnessed that and have not said anything. So for that reason, Mr. Speaker, I am asking some of my colleagues on that side of the aisle, many of them who are very good friends of mine, to understand that denouncing communism and socialism is the right thing to do for the Democratic Party. And if some of the highest, most important members of the Democratic Party on that side of the aisle were to vote with us, they would be doing a very favor to the Republic, and not only that, to the Democratic Party. They will become the new champions. And the Democratic Party will be now the champion for freedom in the Western Hemisphere.
In the short time we have remaining this morning on this important resolution, let's cut to the chase. America stands as a beacon of freedom. America stands as a place of choice. America stands as a place of initiative and opportunity. What the gentlewoman from Florida brings to the House today is a resolution that says that we condemn the horrors of socialism, not just the atrocities associated with mass murder in Ukraine or Cuba or Venezuela or imprisonment, but the capture of the spirit that ends individual freedom, ends individual opportunity. And I want to say that I've been shocked at some of the debate today that we hear from a daughter of Korea, two daughters from Cuba, who've seen firsthand the dangers, the fear, the atrocities, the restraint, the constraint, the end of freedom that they experience and their families experience personally. In my young life, I worked to bring freedom to Eastern Europe. I saw East Germany, empty shelves, empty eyes, empty spirits, no choice, and in West Germany, vibrancy. And yet today we would even have to debate that socialism has some value to the human spirit across the land. It's amazing to me, Mr. Speaker. So I urge a yes vote on this resolution. Whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, old, young, no matter what your political philosophy is, let's unite on this floor and reject the evils of socialism.